Welcome to today's episode of the Cross Labs podcast, On My Mind. Today, Olaf wanted to share something about what's been on his mind, particularly about AI models and the business aspect that goes along with it. So do you want to explain a bit about what's been on your mind lately, Olaf?
Sure. The question I was asking myself was about the different AI companies and how the major ones seem to be controlling the research and the development of the new tool and everything. And I guess OpenAI, Baidu, DeepMind, any of those, it seems like they're sort of leading the effort in terms of at least volume, the amount of hours in compute and all of that. But at the end of the day, the very nice attitude in AI is that we are sort of sharing all the tools as quickly as possible. So even in the cases where there is an embargo, at the end, the knowledge ends up being shared very quickly. So is there any kind of domination from anyone, knowing that all of that is being shared and that a new tool invented by maybe a rather small entity could change completely what the market looks like?
I mean, I think the counterexamples are access to data, in particular data that is not just like static data, but is causal kind of data. It would be very hard for a third party to generate the kind of data set that, say, a newspaper could about the timing or grouping of articles and how that impacts people's response to that publication. Because the advantage that the newspaper has is that they can actually run experiments, and release newspapers with different kinds of patterns of articles and use that to generate training data, which if you're not running a newspaper, good luck.
So does that really make a difference if you don't have access to the data, if the model is being shared later?
Well, I mean, the things that are being shared are the things where the data that's used to make it is public, where basically people have run ahead by using the fact that the internet creates a huge public data set so that they didn't have to make the data. But if you were a business and you wanted a moat that would make it hard for others to compete with you, then the thing to do would be to build models in a space where the data is easy for you to make and very hard for everyone else to make. And then you just don't release the data, or you don't release the trained model. And then in order for other people to catch up with you, they have to spend a lot of money and a lot of risk. GPT is not an example of something where there's a very deep moat. The only moat with GPT is money because it's trained in such a generic way. But something like the Instruct GPT, where you're using human feedback, the fact that OpenAI is harvesting all of these upvotes, downvotes, et cetera, on the generations, that gives them an advantage because their ability to generate data is directly proportional to their popularity.
Are there counterexamples of that? I guess you said GPT in general.
I mean, it depends on how narrowly you want your search space to be. There's models here and there's data, as we've mentioned, but ultimately they go into products. There are plenty of examples when it comes to products where even though there's these runaway advantages, not to quote the tech bro Bible that everyone cites but hasn't actually read, The Innovator's Dilemma, but that's kind of what it's actually about, is products that are on the lower end, that don't really eat into a company's primary source of revenue, that are going in a slightly different direction, and then they get progressively better over time as they have their little corner of things. And then the big players eventually slowly end up retreating up market, so to speak, until being pushed out. It becomes an organizational problem, not a model problem.
Is there a way to impose openness or to maintain openness in such systems?
Data rights, I think, is one way to look at it. Are you allowed to just scrape everyone's data and then use it privately? That's a question that's already open right now.
But that seems like that would protect against the people who have a founding advantage in being able to generate their own data, rather than the advantage of being able to throw money at using the public data.
By generating, you mean like ChatGPT is doing with their customers, or?
Yeah, but the stronger versions of that. The ChatGPT one with the customers, anyone can, in principle, replicate that process. There's nothing special about having access to a human who can judge whether one message is better than the other. So if it turns out Instruct GPT has like logarithmic returns on the amount of data, which it's likely because it's a fine-tuning approach to be even weaker than logarithmic, that's not going to be a super strong moat. That's why you see things like Alpaca fine-tuned on ChatGPT conversations can already capture a lot of ChatGPT's behavior without actually having that data set. But imagine that you were an airplane manufacturer. You had a wind tunnel and you did a bunch of experiments on using your hardware that you have, that most people don't have, on different profiles of wings and planes and things like that. And then you were using that data to train a neural network to predict and design better plane geometries. You could have any data regulation about, you can't scrape people's personal data offline. It's not going to affect the fact that Boeing is going to have a strong advantage at using AI for plane stuff because plane stuff is expensive to get into. And a research lab of 3 people is not going to be buying a $10 million wind tunnel on a bunch of planes.
So let's say you want to solve math problems. That was very difficult for GPT-3, but turns out that if you train it in just on some of the data set of math problems, all of a sudden, you have the illusion that, so this version has solved it out of the same data.
I mean, you can do complicated things, but you could also just ask it to solve a math problem that has no known solution. Presumably, you don't want to have it solving math problems just because, it's cool, it can solve math problems now. You want to solve math problems because you want to do something that requires an artifact capable of solving math problems. Skip the kind of posturing about it can do math, and take it directly to the actual practical application, and then that test will work, even if you've used all your data.
What do you mean it will work? So it might hallucinate it, right?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, if you're solving a novel problem with it, like an actual novel problem, if it fails to solve the problem and gives you the wrong answer, and if it gives you the right answer, you don't care if it did it because someone actually solved that problem on the internet and posted the answer, but you just didn't find it because you still have the solution of the problem you care about and it's validated and it's correct. So that's what I'm saying. Try to work with it in a way that if it works, if it passes your test, regardless of if it cheated, you're still happy.
Is there an inaccessible part of math given your universe?
Well, there's your business plan. You just need to figure out a company whose business model is based on the answer of one of these unanswerable questions, and then just have half of your investors invest in the no answer, half of your investors invest in the yes answer. Of course, if the answer could possibly actually matter within our universe, then it also means that it is addressable within our universe. So, maybe it's not going to make much money.
I'm just wondering how to train a machine that can tell us. Was it just Martin, or did I lose connection?
Now you're still here, but Martin just dropped. I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, when he comes back, we'll say we agree, okay?
Wait a minute. I don't know what I'm agreeing to.
It's fine, don't worry about it.
And this is where you're glad you're not live casting this.
And Martin never came back. Well, I'm going to go get some lunch.
Well, thank you, everyone. Then, yeah. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now welcome back after we're done.
That's it for this week's episode of the Cross Labs podcast On My Mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll be the first to know when the next episode is out. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.